Can't believe how fast they turn on you, because the first couple you caught in need, I mean, you're on top of the world, man, and they're cheering you on. And then that last one, they just turned on you, man.
I know, dude. And it was like I guess I have something in common with Spencer Rattler now. I can see how quickly this fan base will turn on its own.
What is going on, Sooner Nation? You're back with another episode of Oklahoma Sports Podcast with O'Grady and O'Grady. Our guest today is a bona fide icon in the state of Oklahoma. He's verified on Twitter with over 62,000 followers. He was awarded OKC's 2020 Influencer of the Year. He has a love for all things Sooner sports, is a golf enthusiast who covers the Masters with the best of them, and he can rock a visor better than just about anyone. Eddie Radosevich, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, guys. I don't know if I will live up. Hopefully I will live up to the hype of the intro, but I greatly appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Hey, man. Hey, so we're doing some research, all right? We're doing some research on you, and I found that, like Colin and I, you too grew up with parents that had season tickets to the Sooner football games. Can you give us a glimpse into a childhood memory that specifically stands out more than others, or did you and your parents have any traditions on Saturdays in Norman, Oklahoma?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely is kind of a thing that I grew up doing, go to Oklahoma games, as a kid. Obviously, growing up in the middle of the 90s, it was kind of one of those times where OU football definitely what it is today. But, it was always just kind of that's what we did on Saturdays. Growing up in Oklahoma City, we didn't really have a professional team around here. At least in the NFL regards. So, going to a high school game on Friday night, all my cousins that were older than me went to Putnam City North, and we'd go to Putnam City North games on Friday night and then head down to Norman on Saturday. So, I think it was probably like the typical kid that grew up, playing football behind the stadium on the AstroTurf on the practice field, and just kind of doing that thing, parking at the same spot that we always parked at, like south of the stadium there. Just south of the dorms, and walking over, and just kind of the normal, I guess, day to day of going to OU football games and growing up around it. And I think that's kind of one of the integral parts of why I wanted to do what I ended up doing, and going to OU and doing the journalism route and all that kind of stuff. So, I remember there was one time I always get it mixed up. It's either 95 or 96. It might have even been 97. And it was snowing out, and it was just awful weather. And, obviously Oklahoma was going to go get their ass kicked by A&M. And I just remember thinking this is weird that we still go to these games. But, I think it kind of speaks to the passion of the fan base and where everything was at one time, and, kind of what it turned into be. So, it was just, it was that was kind of how we grew up. It was OU football on Saturdays, and you just hung around on Sundays.
So, Eddie, let me ask you this. How's it feel that you were in the trenches with them when things weren't real good, and now you're winning a Big 12 Coast Special Teams Player of the Week for your kickoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it is cool. I definitely am thankful for, I guess, having the opportunity to cover the team, and it's something that I always wanted to do, doing radio and stuff as well. That's something that I guess I kind of dreamed of growing up. And so it's every Saturday during the fall, and especially here over the last couple years, I guess 10 years when I've been covering the team, it's kind of one of those things. It's I guess still a little bit unique in a way, and that, or I guess weird in a way, that I ended up growing up and being able to do this. But at the same time, I think there is a responsibility there that I probably doesn't come across, or maybe that I take for granted sometimes. But I'm obviously appreciative of being able to do it for a living, and I think that it kind of feeds back into the idea of just kind of how passionate the fan base is. And obviously Oklahoma being a blue blood program, there's always going to be interest there, and I think that here over the last couple years, it's probably come to the forefront more over, just the way that everything went down with Lincoln, and then obviously going back into Baker and Kyler, and when everything was real hot there in 16, 17, 18, 19.
For sure, man. So I actually saw, going back to your kick, I saw on Twitter, because I follow you, that you said you didn't muff that last one. I
No,
want to talk about. Hey, I was up in section 107, and it looked like a muff to me.
I mean, okay, it could be considered a muff. I mean, a bastard might say it's a muff, but it was one of those things that I was worried that it was going to short hop me, because it did, and I was going to have to like go into the end zone.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to go into the end zone to like bring a bunch of attention to it, and B, I didn't want it to short hop me and hit me in the nuts in front of everybody. So like I kind of backed away from it, and I got the most shitty bounce of possible. So it does look like I muffed it, but I stand by it wasn't a muff. We need to focus on the good things. Me catching it, that might be like one of the most athletic things I've ever done.
Yeah.
So,
Hey.
no, it was all in good fun. I did appreciate all the fans booing me though.
Yeah. Hey, I
that
can't believe
was-
how fast they turn on you, because the first couple you caught in need, I mean, you're on top of the world, man, and they're cheering
I
you
know.
on. And then that last one, they just turned on you, man.
I know, dude. And it was like I guess I have something in common with Spencer Rattler now. I can see how quickly this fan base will turn on its own.
Yeah, at least we weren't calling for another sideline reporter to come field our kicks, though.
That's right. That's right. There's not a damn person that could do what I did. I can tell
That's
you that.
right.
Colin in one of our previous episodes said that you're an absolute ball magnet because you just have a way about just being in the exact right place at the right time for him.
Yeah, I would like to think that Zach's kicking it to me, but I don't think that that's the case. It just so happens that
He
I'm
like
in
does the Babe Ruth pointing out to you like, Eddie, this
yeah,
one's for you.
yeah, exactly. Like it is kind of funny though. It's like because we're always like videographer wise or photo wise, you always should be shooting like toward like with the action coming towards you. So
Right.
that's why we're always in the end zone, like where OU is kicking,
Gotcha.
because they're obviously coming out and the other team's going the other way. So it just kind of works out that way.
Gotcha. Hey, well, going back to you saying just like your dream of doing what you're doing. And I said I watched an interview of you saying you had chances to work with ESPN and ESPNU during your journalism school at OU that kind of solidified, one, your dream of being a sports broadcasting, and then two, that like you could actually do this, like when you got those opportunities. Can you go into those experiences a little bit and what you took away from those moments?
Yeah, it was, it was really kind of cool. It's like, at the time, I think Gaylord was just kind of like really starting to focus on the broadcast journalism stuff. So I graduated in 2009 from OU in December of 2009. So it like they just started in like 07, 08, 09-ish is when they really started to like, you get a hyper focus on like, okay, I want to do sports or I want to do news or I want to do journalism, like print media. So I was kind of under the old curriculum, so I was able to get a lot of hands-on experience doing everything. I wrote for the OU Daily. I wrote, I was doing stuff for Rivals at the time. I was doing like recruiting phone calls and that kind of stuff. But the ESPN stuff kind of came about with just like some stupid ideas that we had, like me and another, actually one of my fraternity brothers and a couple other guys that were in news at the time, and it just kind of was like OU wanted to, they had this thing called Campus Connection at the time, and it was basically they would go around to journalism schools or broadcast journalism schools around the country, and it was kind of a way for them basically to get a little bit of free work to make a show on ESPNU, but at the same time, as a student, you were getting the opportunity to put packages together, go out into the field and do stuff. And so we put together some funny little, I guess, bits, if you will, kind of skits type stuff. And then like the big one was we got to do an OU Nebraska game, and they actually had it on ESPNU, and I did the play-by-play with Fran Fraschilla and a guy named Mike Leeson. And I think it was Mike. Fran Fraschilla was awesome though, and like spent the day with them. It was like a student-led broadcast. And then so I kind of made some inroads with some of the ESPN people through that. And then like once it came around to like graduating and stuff, I applied for some jobs, interviewed for some jobs in Charlotte when they still had the ESPNU studios. And I don't know, like if I really truly pursued it, I probably could have done something along those lines, but I just didn't want to do like the production assistant route and like move to Charlotte and do all that kind of stuff behind the scenes, if you will. And I had a good thing going with Rivals at the time, and I was already working for them. And then Kerry Murdoch and Josh McQuestion were going to expand Sooner Scoop when I graduated, and it all just kind of fell together to where, I basically just kind of backdoored into getting a job with them. And I'd like to think it was because of some of the work I had already done. So it was, I guess it's kind of weird. It's like some of the stuff that, like, especially in radio, it's just like timing and being in the right spot at the right time. And it's almost like, like a sport, like being, when you're called upon, being able to perform when you can get up there. And,
Right.
I think a little bit of that helped. And then, just networking throughout college and knowing everybody on the beat and being comfortable within that position. So it worked out at the same time, but it was fun. And all that ESPNU stuff was really fun to look back on as well.
Right. Well, I think that like another reason you're so successful is that you're like unapologetically like yourself. Whereas a lot of people like, try and find
I
their
appreciate it.
like their ebbs and flow of what they think a sports broadcaster or like a play-by-play guy should be. And so it's like you're quoted in a Q&A with Barrett Sports Media saying, hopefully people can appreciate the fact that they know what they're getting with me. I don't want to be fake at all. And so like in a world where people are constantly trying to do exactly that, like, how are you so confident in who you are, and like where do you think that came from?
I think that I appreciate it. I think that, like, there is a certain element of, and especially in today's sports media, just over, like the last 5 years that I've been doing this, there is like a localized aspect to covering a team and knowing the fan base. And I think that that's why, like, you even see like sites like The Athletic now that have put localized reporters within the beat, because you just have a good idea of, like, not necessarily what people don't want to hear, because there is stuff that you have to talk about that people don't want to hear. Like the Joe Mixon stuff was very uncomfortable to talk about. More recently, the Cale Gundy stuff was even more, just very uncomfortable to talk about. But there is an aspect of, I think, knowing the audience and being real with the audience and having a level of respect that they know that, kind of thing. And just kind of knowing where they're coming from, because something that, somebody from the outside coming in to report on Oklahoma, they might just blow off as opposed to, somebody that is around the program or somebody that knows, like, kind of where everybody is coming from. So, I think that, like, the Barstool model has definitely encouraged that here over the last, however many years. And I do think that, it's going to get closer and closer to that. But at the same time, having a respect for, it is, a profession. It is a job that we're there to do. And we're not there to be like fanboys by any means. But, I'd be lying to you if I sat here and said that, like, Oklahoma doing well and winning games, that's good for us. That's good for the product. That's good for the program. It's good for us to be able to sell subscriptions, interest in the program, and all that other kind of stuff. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. But, at the same time, I do feel like there is a realness that comes with, especially, being on the radio in the mornings in Oklahoma City. I think that, like, there is a realness that comes to that. So, like, when we talk about, like, the cars in the food court at Quail Springs, like, people get that, like, they know what we're talking about. People know what Penn Square is, like Crossroads. And I just think that there's like a deeper connection. I at least personally, I feel like I connect with somebody a little bit more when, it's like, man, that dude cares about what he's talking about. And I think that comes through in your work as well.
Right. Colin, you got something for him?
Yeah. So I follow you on Twitter, Eddie, and I think you're hilarious. And so I'm actually trying to run our Twitter, and I don't know if I'm doing the best job at it. So, but when you send out a tweet, is there some strategy behind it, or is it just whatever comes to your head, you're just sending it out and take it or leave it for your followers?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I think that there is like I was actually talking about this with somebody today. I think that there is a certain element of, like, growing a brand, and, like, I feel like nowadays I can tweet something and it not be so serious, and people will get it, as opposed to somebody that just throws something out there, Joe Nobody, that says something and then all of a sudden it's like instantaneously news, or not news, like fake news for somebody, that it's like, well, that was a joke. Like you should never believe something like that. So I do think that there is like this certain like, and I think it's something that people that like with bigger brands and bigger like social media followings always kind of have to balance the line of knowing, like it's kind of going back to like knowing your audience and realizing what you can get away with, what you can't say. Should I take like a chance here and tweet something or not? And I think like as like the brand gets bigger, at least for me personally, there's some stuff that like I probably 5 years ago would have commented on, and it was more so just to be as part of the conversation, as opposed to now when it's like I can kind of reserve my right to maybe talk about that on the radio or talk about that on a podcast, and I don't feel like I have to like just be on the phone like 24/7 all day, because I do think like there is like this element that you get in when you start feeling like you have to be on Twitter or Instagram or whatever all day every day. And I think it almost changes your personality a bit in a way, and it's obviously not a good thing. You can almost be like oversaturated with information, and like I think that there is like this mental stress that comes with it. So I want to keep it fun, but at the same time I think that there is a certain element of like, especially with Oklahoma football, that I do cover it for a living. I did go to school to be a journalist, quote unquote. So, I think that like I try to walk that line, and sometimes it gets blurred, and sometimes maybe you have a couple too many drinks on a Saturday, and it's like you fire something out there, and it's like, oh, that's gonna be funny, and it completely flops, and you just kind of live with it. You kind of roll with the punches on that kind of shit. So, the one thing that I always try to remember is like Twitter's not a real place. Like there are so many people out there that even if I have a big Twitter following, that like nobody knows, like they don't know who I am because of that, even though there are some people that like identify me as that. So it's still fun in a way. It's still a great resource for information, obviously, but at the same time you have to take it all with a grain of salt, and obviously all the like negativity and criticism that comes with it, you just kind of got to like learn, like I don't know, I guess in a way this might sound bad. It's just kind of like, fuck them. I don't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't affect what I do. It doesn't affect, if I'm happy or not, or if you try not to allow it to affect you. And if you can live with it, I think that, that's kind of what it is. That's what makes you, or makes your Twitter account. So I don't know. It's kind of a fine line. And, it's always like the people that, I have this theory. It's like anybody that is always negative about something, or that just wants to bitch and complain about something in the comments, they're the person that usually has like a bunch of numbers in their Twitter handle and like less than 10 followers. And it just like, it's rinse and repeat every time. Those are the types of people. So I don't know. When I see it, they usually get muted. Like nowadays, I don't even really block anybody that much anymore. It's just, I don't know. I don't let it get to me. And I think that's kind of like the key to success.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there definitely is that line, but I think you do a good job of kind of towing that line between like staying professional, but also being like super funny about stuff. So
yeah, and I think that like there are a bunch of people, and I would say like the majority is kind of like anything in life. The people that are like the vocal minority are always going to be the loudest. And especially like here in like, I guess, a time capsule of like the last 3 weeks, when they're losing football games and everybody wants to run Brent out of town and all that kind of stuff. It's just like those people in normal settings, I probably wouldn't take very seriously, but it's just like, you just kind of roll with it. And it's also, you like kind of just remember that's a gateway for everybody else. It's a gateway to get out their frustration, to vent their frustration. It's kind of like the message boards. It's like, there's a lot of people that are going to say a bunch of stuff that they would probably never say in public or to somebody's face.
Like keyboard warriors.
Yeah, like they still pay to be there, and that's like their coping mechanism. I get it. Like I get that way with the Thunder. I get that way with the Cubs. I get that way with, sports teams that I've bet on throughout the weekend. It's like, I want to, strangle somebody, but it's not ever too personal, right?
yeah.
Well, going back to your high school days, okay, like with a school that has produced the likes of Sam Bradford, David Holt, who's the mayor of OKC, Olivia Munn, right? I'm curious, what's it like being the most notable graduate of Putnam City North High School?
Shit, I don't think I'm the most notable, but like Putnam City North has had a great run of alumni, and like I grew up with Sam, so it was super cool to kind of see that up close and personal when he was like going through the recruiting process. And I remember like the night that OU offered, and it was like such a big deal, especially for us growing up and going to Oklahoma games together. That was super cool. Obviously it's really cool that David Holt's now the mayor of Oklahoma City. And the one thing that like Putnam City North, it seems like maybe more so than anywhere, especially in the Oklahoma City area, in my generation of people, like 3-4 years above, 3-4 years below, we all kind of stick together. I don't know what it is. It just feels like everybody, whether you go up to Stillwater on a game weekend, or you go down to Norman, like everybody kind of knows everybody. And that was always kind of super cool that we were all, able to stay close knit. Some of my best friends to this day are guys that I grew up going to middle school with. And then obviously went to Putnam North, couple went to OSU, couple went to OU, and we all have stayed relatively pretty close together. So I guess once a Panther, always a Panther kind of thing. But we are like kind of like a little cult, I guess, in a way.
That's so funny. That's super cool that you grew up with Sam. Like Colin, what year were you born?
I was born 2001.
So Colin's
I am old.
Yeah, so 2001, but I just remember like Colin had the huge Sam Bradford.
I was obsessed.
Like,
yeah,
Colin
dude.
was obsessed with that dude. So he's like,
that entire
double
thing
envious
was
of you
just
right
it was
now.
crazy. The entire thing was crazy. And like, I kind of always go back to like the idea of like, whatever happens if like Bomar never gets in trouble and Sam never gets the opportunity. It was awesome. It was cool, truly cool, like to be in college at the time and to like see it all up close. And all the success that he had, after OU and going to St. Louis and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool. I'm happy for him.
That is super cool. So Eddie, we were looking into your franchise bio, and it said, I don't know if you can tell, but this picture behind me, that's Russell Westbrook in the glory days. I don't have the best camera quality, but it says you're a personal friend of Russell Westbrook. Is there truth to that? And can you dive into that a little bit?
No, absolutely not. But I did go to the summer kickoff party when they got Paul George.
Oh, okay.
And that was pretty sick. I think it was like out in Arcadia or whatever. But they ran out of ice for the mixed drinks, which I will never ever forget. And they had Nas there. That was pretty cool. That was kind of like one of those coming of Oklahoma City moments. I was like, okay, this is pretty damn cool that we have like a NBA basketball team. And this was even after like all the KD stuff too. So, I do think that there is like, and it kind of goes back to like the just being local and staying in Oklahoma City, having grown up here. It's like, I remember back in the day when coming down to Bricktown meant like going to Spaghetti Warehouse, and that was it. Like the brick wasn't even there at the time, like the ballpark, and just seeing like kind of how it's transitioned. I mean, I've lived downtown now. Like I would have never have thought that growing up that I was going to live in downtown Oklahoma City. And so like just that kind of stuff is kind of I guess a reminder of where this thing has been and how much the city has grown. But no, unfortunately, I'm not close friends with Russell Westbrook. I wish.
Well,
so friends with
still
the
a chance, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so speaking of the Thunder, how do you think they're going to do this year? And how sad were you that Chet Holmgren is out for the season with the foot injury?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, I was really excited to see what he was going to be able to bring to the lineup. I don't know. I guess like the fan in me has kind of talked myself into thinking like they could make the bottom end of that 9-10 game maybe if they don't like just completely tank, because I do think there's going to be some teams in the league that just absolutely make a mockery of the season, in basically an attempt to get Victor Wembanyama. But and watching him, don't get me wrong, those games that they had on ESPN here the last couple of weeks, it was like, shit, I could probably sit through 0-82 if that's what it meant to get this guy. But I they do have a young core. They'd have a young, exciting team that is coming in with, I'm excited to see kind of the steps that Shea Gilgeous has made this year. Obviously excited to see what Trey Mann can do again this year. Lou Dort with a full season under his belt and healthy. I'm excited to see what they can be. I think SGA can be an all-star at some point in his career. And, it feels like, and maybe this is just like the complete Thunder fan in me, but it feels like they're starting to get back to that kind of precipice of being able to kind of really finally start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And if that's the case, the last year, 2-3 years have obviously sucked. I think just from a personal viewing standpoint, I have the games on every night, but it's also not something that I go, shit, like I need to get home and watch the Thunder game if it's starting at 8:00. Like that draw to the Thunder just isn't there when you're 15-45 or whatever. So, I hope that they can be competitive again this year. Start slowly kind of climbing out of that.
Well, you can tell that like OKC's success of old that they built it on was through the draft and through development. And then when we had like KD, Russ, James Harden, like we did such a good job with that. They like Presti and them tried to get into let's trade for a Paul George. Yeah. Let's, let's get Chris Paul. Let's see how we can. And then like, hey, OKC's not the market as a LA or, New York or Boston or stuff like that. And so it's one of those things you can kind of see him getting back to the root of, hey, we're draft these players, develop them. Sure. And so one of those things that I'm really hoping, I think that they are getting back to that.
We were just so spoiled too when the Thunder got here, and like KD and James and Russ and Serge and everybody's like cooking just like from the get-go, and all of a sudden you're in the Western Conference Finals, and then you're a perennial Western Conference contender. And I think that like at the time it was just like, I was basically, kind of getting out of college at the time, and it was just like, that's what we did during the summer. We were going to go drink on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. We were going to go watch the playoff games. We were going to go out, to the bars, and that's just what we did. Like, that's what you did in June. You went and watched the Thunder playoff, and like, it almost kind of makes you appreciate it. It's kind of like Oklahoma fans right now, just as far as the football stuff goes. It's like winning is hard.
Yeah.
There is a process to it. Love it and respect it when you have it, because when it's gone, you're going to be left sitting there like, well, shit, what do I do now? So I like the process. I'm a Sam Presti ride or die. I believe in everything that they're trying to do, and hopefully here in a couple of years, this thing can kind of get back to what it used to be.
Yeah, I'm almost to the point where it's like, hey, Presti, like in Presti we trust, like 100%. I'm on that board, but I'm like, we need to start using all those draft picks. Like we need to like move up or make trades or something, because you can't.
Well, there's only so much you can do with 15 draft picks for like the next, 40 years or whatever. Like I don't know if I'm going to be alive in the next 5 years. I want to win now.
Exactly. Hey, just for some reason, whenever you said like I'm a fan of the process, like my mind flashed like I want to know, because I was like, hey, that's what Sooner football is right now, is like reestablishing like that Sooner DNA. Like we've made it like a very Twittery, memeified thing, but like that's exactly what Brent Venables is trying to do. And I was like, Tebow kind of took away that the past 5 years. How happy were you to see that game in Utah and see Caleb Williams cry some crocodile tears?
I mean, it's pathetic. I mean, it's
tell us the truth, Eddie.
But yeah, like I think I sat there like everybody else, like, come on, Utah, are you going for 2? And it's like, shit, what if they don't make it? But yeah, like I think that's part of sports though. Like that's part of fandom, and kind of growing up around here, it's like I know how much everybody was hurt by everything that went down, and it just like it sucked. But at the same time, like I do feel bad, because I do still know some of the coaches that went out there with them, and have a good relationship with them. They're trying to feed their families just like everybody else. So but yeah, it's like over the last couple of weeks, and especially like coming back from Dallas or coming back from Fort Worth or wherever, and you have to like get home, and it's like after a long day of watching you get their ass kicked, and you turn on the television and Caleb Williams is just dropping dimes on people. It's like, shit, like this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to us. But at the same time, like it's pathetic again, but in a way, it definitely made me happy.
Well, nothing was more pathetic or more just like spot on than Lincoln Riley getting on the podium and like blaming the refs. And then it was like, we were a couple inches several times. And I'm like, is that the new version of the we're really close?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
one of those things you're like, yes, he hasn't changed.
Well, and everything that went into that loss in Salt Lake City was just kind of very familiar, wasn't it? You put up a bunch of yards offensively, defense can't get any stops. There's just some awful penalties, and questionable. That I thought I didn't think the officiating was great by any means, but for both sides. But kind of undisciplined at times, and it kind of is what it is. I don't think that that's going to change overnight with them, and I will say though, it's like you can watch Caleb Williams spin the ball, and it's like, okay, yeah, like he's pretty damn good. I'm not one of those people that would sitting around like last summer, like Dylan Gabriel would start in front of Caleb Williams. Like I don't think that that's probably the case, folks. I know that everybody's mad, but the kid is really, really good at football. Kind of like the Big Lebowski, like the what's he say? Like the creep can roll, man. It's like, yeah, he's really, really good.
That's funny. All right. So we've talked about, growing up a Sooner fan. We've talked about OU football. We've talked about the Thunder. And Eddie's even tiptoed around the USC drama because he's still got friends in SC. We're going to forgive him for that.
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. Fuck them. But like, no, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm cheering for USC.
That's the Eddie we wanted.
There we go. I told you I wanted the real answer, and you tiptoed, Eddie. That's what I was.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong. Like they've wronged a lot of people around here, but I don't maybe mean some of the like truly mean things that I've said.
That's fair enough. That's
there we go. All right. So after that legendary answer, we're gonna switch gears. So I'm a huge golf fan. Like, my dream job would seriously be like talking OU or Oklahoma sports, and literally having like a golf YouTube channel where like me and a buddy just go and hit the links like 3 days out of the week. So like, I know that that's something that you've really gotten into over the past, 10 years of just as far as like covering it, knowing what you're talking about. And so I've like read a lot of the stuff and like listened to your covering of the Masters. And I'm like, dude, I'm so jealous of this dude. Like, so tell me like your experience, your experience of like getting into the realm of covering golf, and then let me know, are you team PGA or are you team LIV golf?
I mean, golf is definitely a passion of mine. I think it's just one of those things. It's like I grew up playing it, grew up going to the golf course with my dad. It's like you came home from the OU football games on Saturdays. It was like golf course on Sunday. And I think that a lot of it had to do with, I not that I was good at it by any means, but it was just something that I enjoyed doing. I had a bunch of friends that enjoyed doing it. So like during the summer, like we would go do, we called it Iron Claws, like summer workouts and stuff during the summer. And, one of our moms would like drop us off at Lake Hefner, and we'd stay there literally all day until sun went down. And, it became kind of one of those things that like, I think once I got older and older, I was like, this is something that is obviously great to be a part of. Even on the business side of things, you can go play golf with people all the time. And so I like that aspect of it. And then, it's like, I don't know if I would say that I necessarily cover it, but I watch a lot of it. And I enjoy watching golf on television, whether it be LPGA or PGA, any of that kind of stuff. So, it's cool that I've kind of become friends with some of the guys down at the OU team right now, some of the former guys, being in part of, not a part of it, but like loosely covering the run that they had, and what Coach Hibble has built down there has been awesome. Obviously, they got another $5 million donation from Jerry Ransom today to make improvements over to the Ransom course and that kind of stuff. So, Oklahoma, I'm pretty biased when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I think it's a great state for golf.
Really is.
I think that, like the pitch that, Coach Holder at Oklahoma State in years past, or even now up at, OSU, and then, obviously at OU or even ORU or anywhere, if you can't play golf in Oklahoma during the spring, or like during the fall, just with the different variances of wind that you get with weather and how it changes all of a sudden, I think it's a great kind of a breeding ground, and I think that that's why a lot of the guys, particularly like Victor Hovland and Matthew Wolff and some of those guys, Brad Dahlke on the Oklahoma side, Max McGreevy, Quade Cummins, a bunch of those guys that have come on here as of late. Like I think that the weather and where they practice has a lot to do with them being able to go out into the tour. And obviously the programs that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have built have they're powerhouses now. Oklahoma State obviously been on top for the longest of times, and with what Coach Hibble has built down in Norman, it's it's kind of cool. So not to mention, I grew up around. I was never the club kid. I was a public school scrub. So Hefner, Lincoln, Trosper, John Conrad, all of those places. Obviously thankful that Oklahoma City is taking care of those courses, and they're good places to practice, good places to play, and that kind of developed an early kinship for the game and everything that came with it. So I love it. The PGA Live stuff is interesting. I'm PGA ride or die, but there are things that the PGA has done for so long that obviously they've tried to run a monopoly on the entire industry, and I don't like the way that it's gone down with Live, but I understand that in the long term, hopefully this is something that wakes a bunch of people up at the PGA Tour offices, and the changes that they're enacting now are a product of that. So I wouldn't say that I'm a Live fan, but I loosely know some guys that are close with Taylor Gooch. I don't think Taylor Gooch is just a terrible person because of it.
Right.
In the same spot, give me 20-30 million, probably be helping the Saudis out with whatever they wanted. So
How about how much money Tiger turned down?
Yeah, and I'm always going to be a Tiger guy. Always, forever will be a Tiger guy. Obviously, because in '97 I was 9 years old. It's that was I grew up with Tiger Woods. That's all I knew was Tiger Woods in the golf world. And
were you at the 2019 Masters?
Yeah. So we went out there. I went out there with Mike Steele. It was right when I got into radio with the franchise, and we had a sponsor that actually has a house in Augusta, totally tickets, and we did our show from Augusta all weekend. I mean, all week, Monday, Tuesday. I think we left on Monday, got out there, went Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we were going to come back Saturday morning. They moved the spring game up because of weather on Friday night, so I flew back Friday morning and came back and covered the spring game. So, but it was cool. I mean, it truly is one of those experiences, a little bit kind of like OU Texas, maybe greater just because of the aura and the mystique of Augusta National.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's if you ever get a chance, if you ever get an opportunity, drop everything you're doing and go, because it's a magical, emotional experience of just walking around on the hallowed grounds. It's super, super cool. And that's the kind of stuff that I appreciate in sports, the tradition aspect of it, the kind of the pageantry of it, and that's something that Live is just never going to be able to have. They're
Right.
never going to be able to replicate the feeling of Augusta, the feeling of even the PGA Championship up in Tulsa this past summer. It's
Right.
those are truly, truly special events. You look forward to those 4 weekends of the year, whether it be the British or the US or the PGA or the Masters. Those are kind of I know that I'm going to be locked in on live from on Monday through Thursday, and then when the tournament starts, I'm going to be locked in on the tournament Thursday through Sunday. So
Right.
that
was going to be one of my questions, because I've been to OU Texas. We went 4 years in a row when I was younger, and just I want to take my wife, because I'm you can't even put it into word. When you step on the fairgrounds, there's just something different. You can feel the energy in the air. And so that was literally going to be one of my questions, of being a part of something that I know how it feels to be in OU Texas. What was it like at Augusta? And you already talked about it, where it's just you really can't put into words just the just that feeling that you talked about.
The craziest thing, and everybody talks about it, two things at Augusta. It's like the undulations of everything. Everything is like straight up and down. Going down 10 is like, if you're walking down the hill at 10, it's truly like you're walking down like a mountain, basically. And just like in perspective, like where Rory hit his ball when it went left over into like those houses and stuff over on 10, it's just like, it's indescribable how far left that is, even for like somebody that hits the ball very far left. Sometimes it's like, I don't know how that happened. And then the other thing that's just like completely totally unique about Augusta is just like everybody kind of watches out for everybody. It's like it's super weird in a way of like everybody understands how special it is to be there, so you don't want to ruin it for the person next to you. And like there's this international feel, if that makes sense. Like just like you could be talking to somebody from Oklahoma next to you, and then there's somebody from Japan, somebody from India, somebody from Europe, somebody from wherever, in this long lit line of people, and you're all there to do the same thing. And on top of all of it, you can't have a cell phone on the ground. So nobody has a cell phone. Nobody is standing there like with the camera in front of their face. Everybody's there to watch the golf. And you know, that's why, like, you know, the roars of Augusta and all that kind of stuff, it truly like is kind of chilling when you first hear it, because it's like, oh shit, something happened. Where was that coming from?
Right.
And so it's just really special. But it has like that definitely like that OU Texas field, I think, from an aspect of, oh, I could be standing here and, you know, whoever, like Jack Nicklaus stood here 35 years ago and did this. And you have that like instant gratification of knowing like there is some places in this world, and particularly in the sporting world, that it just can't be replicated. That feeling will never be able to be replicated. Like the 2018 Big 12 championship at Arlington against Texas was just, it was strange in a way because it wasn't at the Cotton Bowl. And there's just something special about that aura, that arena, that environment that you walk away from and you're like, I can't wait till I get back there.
Right. Agreed. Well, if I ever get the chance, man, I'm
gotta do it and save up, because like once you get into like the merch shop and stuff, they have all these merch places like around the area, like out on the course and stuff. Not on the course, but like by the clubhouse. And then there's another one over on a couple other entrances, and it's just like you get in there and it's like, I want everything in this building. And then you try to buy everything, and then you get up to the register and it's like, I'm literally never going to recover from this.
You're like, I'm going to put those back.
Yeah, no, it's awesome though.
Like, do
absolutely
really
incredible.
Need a golf ball signed by, you know, so and so? Like, probably not.
No. So we went out there late on Tuesday, and there weren't too many guys out there. And then we went out there Wednesday, and we went out there. There weren't too many guys playing practice rounds. Tuesday afternoon when we got there, like the first people that we saw though walking down the fairway was Tiger, Fred Couples, JT, and I think Kisner was playing with them. And like I was like one of those, like luckily in this business, I've been able to like interact with a bunch of really cool people. But like Tiger, for me, being a childhood idol, was one of those people that I was like, holy shit, like I don't know if I'd be able to speak to him.
I need to change my pants.
Yeah, like, so that was cool. But no, I'm not much of a big autograph seeker. I don't know. I like, if I got something at like a silent auction, that'd be cool. But I don't know. I've never really bridged that gap as far as like, hey, will you sign something? I used to be. I'd go to like Meet the Sooners Day and all that kind of stuff when I was young. But I don't know. I just don't, I guess.
So Eddie, what would you say, like you're talking about how you've had a chance to interact with some cool athletes, and like what would you say was probably the coolest interaction, or maybe just like a cool interaction and then a really strange interaction you've had with like an athlete we would know?
I mean, like I think that like the stuff that I had with Baker and Kyler definitely that went viral. I mean, that was always pretty cool. I was appreciative of them, that like they kind of played along. They knew the bit that was going on.
Yeah.
as far as like just awkward, I mean, Jalen Hurts was always kind of awkward. I don't know if I wouldn't say that like we didn't get along by any means, but he just wasn't kind of there for the bullshit.
He was
Which
always
I
just like
get.
super
Like that's not.
stoic.
It's just not his personality. Kyler was
Yeah.
kind of that way, but he kind of opened up to me more just because I was around the baseball team a lot,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of got to know him from that side of things. So he kind of knew where I was coming from. But you know, Kyler and Baker, obviously, like I think a lot of like, I don't know, like from just a personal aspect, like my brand and career kind of coincided with OU being really good in 16, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And that certainly helped and you know, kind of understand or get people to understand where I was coming from and kind of like the way that I operate, I guess, a little bit. So
Mhm.
you know, those guys were always really cool about it. I don't really mess with any of the Thunder guys. Like I'm not around it very much. I don't go over there for interviews or anything like that. So um, I'd say like Kyler and Baker definitely were two of the cooler guys. And then just kind of knowing some of the other players on the team here over the last couple of years has been really cool.
Yeah, that is super cool. So
Eddie,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Say my bad.
All right, Eddie, who rocks a visor better, Bob Stoops, Bubba Watson, or Eddie Radosevich?
I mean, I have better hair than all three of them, so it might be me. I mean, I don't know. I think I have a greater appreciation for the high crown visor, but I mean, Bob kind of was the he was like the son of the godfather of the visor, who's Steve Spurrier. So you know, I maybe like Bob 1A and me 1B. I don't know. And I don't know. I'm not much of a Bubba Watson guy, so I kind of appreciate him, but I kind of think that a lot of the stuff that he does, I kind of roll my eyes at. But then again, a lot of people probably say the same about me. So I don't know. I guess I'll let Bob win that one.
Man, I love the confidence. Love the confidence. I just got one more question for you, Colin. You got anything?
I just got to say that they might be able to rock visors as good, or Bob maybe even better, but they don't have the hands on special teams that you have, Eddie. So you always
That's
have.
right. That's right. That's right. Bob would have just kicked it away. He would have
That's
kicked
right.
it back. They would have repunted, right?
Oh God! Hey, don't even talk about that, man. We don't mess with that. That
That
was
was
not
that
cool,
was
Eddie.
I was actually living with a guy in one of my buddies. It was me and another guy that were living together in Oklahoma City at the time, and he was a big OSU grad,
Mhm.
big OSU fan, and I mean. I think that that's like one of those things that I'm truly gonna miss about Bedlam when it all kind of comes together or comes to an end, is that back and forth that you're able to have with your buddies or the guys that you work with that are Oklahoma State fans, because you know at the end of the day you're still friends. But
Yeah,
it like those were some pretty lean times around the household after Bob re-kick.
I bet. Hey, do you think it's truly done for good though? Like once we leave the conference, do you think they'll find a way to work it out eventually?
I think that it'll be one of those things that they probably don't play for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe this is more hope than anything. I hope that like calmer heads prevail at some point and they end up rescheduling each other.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, I would miss it. I think that there is an element, and especially having Bedlam on Thanksgiving weekend, like we've had in the past. Like one of my like favorite nights of the year is the night before Thanksgiving when everybody comes back and everybody goes to the bars, and like there just is like that added element of having Bedlam on the back end of everything. And so I would hope that eventually cooler heads prevail, but you know, I like I said, like when everything happened with the SEC, I understand where Oklahoma State's coming from. I would have been
Mm-hmm.
pissed if the roles were reversed. You know, I think it would have been a shitstorm for anybody. So I get it. But yeah, I'd like to see them play again at some point. Hopefully, the other sports can all survive.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Eddie, I just need to know, how long did you sit at the bus stop waiting for Brent Venables?
Honestly, not too long. Luckily, but I did sit at the godforsaken airport down in Norman for way too long. It felt like days and days and days. Me, Jason Kersey, and Ryan Aber were spread out all over like the Oklahoma City 8 metro, like between Wiley Post and Norman, trying to track all these planes that were coming in to like, who are they bringing in? Who's coming out? And that was definitely one of those things. Like I live downtown, like I said, so That was one of those things, like just one of those stupid ideas that I had that ended up turning into kind of a viral sensation. And probably would have been able to get away with it years ago, but nowadays it was all good. It was like the perfect comedic relief at a really dark moment, but it was fun.
It was
It
the
definitely was fun. I don't know
dedication.
if I'd want to do a coaching search like every year, but those 2 weeks that everything was going down, it was absolutely insane. Like I will never ever forget just how batshit crazy all that stuff was. Like even coming back from Bedlam the night before everything happened, that was a late game, and we got back from Stillwater late, and it was just like kind of like one of those like kicking the balls because the last 2 weeks and how they went with the Baylor performance and then Bedlam. And like I remember telling Carrie, it's like, well, at least this is kind of it. Like this is it for a while. They're not playing in the Big 12 championship. We won't have anything to worry about. Like the coast kind of cleared because all the LSU rumors and the weeks leading up to that. And then it was just like waking up that next Sunday is like, oh my God, like this is going to be World War III. And it kind of was at the same time. So it was fun, but I don't know if I'd ever want to do it again. It was insane. Those are like kind of the crazy parts about being on the beat that you just like, you definitely remember, like even when Bob retired, Carrie had been tipped off to it. And like that phone call that I got from Carrie is like, you can't tell anybody, but Bob's retiring this afternoon. And it's just like, you kind of start like from a journalist standpoint, kind of planning the rest of your day and like, okay, I need to be here. I need to go do this. We need to cover this. And it was just, I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that, like, as bad as it is and as bad as the news is and as pissed as people are going to be when you finally report on it, that's the kind of stuff I guess that kind of, in a way, like awkwardly gets me going in a way. Like that's the kind of excitement of the job. So it was messed up for sure, but it was a lot of fun.
Was it Carrie? I don't know if memory's serving correct. Was it Carrie that Lincoln said, "Let me stop you right there"? Like,
Yeah,
he said the
'cause-
LSU rumors, like, I will not be taking the LSU job.
yeah, Carrie asked him, and mind you, this is like another one of the, forgive me, like the bullshit COVID stuff that we had to go through. That like, so we were still on Zoom at the time. So like a follow-up question could have been asked if we were in person, but
Right.
because we were doing Zoom at the time,
You had to like call in.
everything's like moderated and your microphone is opened and not open. So Carrie's question was basically like, are you going to be the LSU coach next year? And that's when he cut him off. And if we were in person, I think the follow-up would have been, so you'll be at Oklahoma. And that was like, I don't know how much like goes into this kind of stuff, but like, I have buddies that are lawyers, and that was like one of the things that they said that they first noticed was like when he cut him off, he's taking command of the the question. Basically, he's taking command of the conversation. And it's like one of those all-time like what you should have done differently type situations. But obviously it's hindsight 2020. Everything looking back on it would have been crystal clear.
Here's another. I keep coming up with questions because you keep bringing them up. Here's another. Let's see how tiptoey you want to be. Did he lose? Did he lose OSU on purpose, or not on purpose? But did he call a very vanilla second half?
I don't think that they lost on purpose. Like, I by no means do I think that any of those guys went into that game, because I know for a fact that there was a lot of guys on staff that were just as surprised as anybody. I don't think that they went into that game looking to lose or trying to lose, but I do think that, like, even going back into the bye week before the Baylor game, we heard rumors like, shit's just weird down here right now. There's something going on and nobody could put their finger on it. And I think that it was one of those things, like, call it a distraction, call it whatever you want. I do think that there were certain elements of the program that maybe weren't getting the attention that they would have in 2017 or even 2016 or even 2018 in the weeks leading up to everything and how it went down. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something that will someday light will be shed on it. But I don't think that, like, the idea that they lost on purpose, I don't think that would be the case. But it's fascinating, like, what would have happened if if Caleb breaks off that long run at the end of the Bedlam game and they end up tying it and winning it in overtime, and they're playing in the Big 12 championship. That kind of stuff kind of fascinates me. They're purely hypotheticals. Who knows what would have happened? But
it was more along the lines of like yes, regardless, like there were going to be some Sooner fans like pissed of the whole situation. But like when he comes out and is like, it was an overnight, or I decided, last night. It's like
all that was bullshit.
You freaking kidding me?
Yeah, I'm not believing.
Like you moved your entire family like in an overnight, last second after like bullshit. Like I'm calling
not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance. Not buying it.
Hey, well, Eddie, we've stolen enough of your time, dude. Hey,
dudes, all good, man. Anytime. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Everything was it was fun. It was a good conversation.
Well, good. All right, man. Well, have a good evening. We'll talk at you soon. We'll let you know when the podcast is up, so you can maybe give it a retweet or a shout out or something.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Anytime, guys.
All right, appreciate it, dude.
Thanks,
See ya.
Eddie.
Yeah.